Hi again. I was just out on a drive here and I came across this really unique piece of land here on the prairie. It's probably the closest thing to a mountain you can imagine. I actually had to twist and turn up this hill a little bit. Actually, I came from that direction, but it's kind of a unique piece of property up here. Quite remote area. Not much going on, so we might get a car go by, but not likely. Just thought it was a great opportunity to take this and say a few words. I came across this idea a couple times. I have actually, the idea of owning property. What is that? Is it real? Are we deluding ourselves about ownership? What is it really? I mean, if I was to say, suppose I did claim, or somebody claimed that I own this land or somebody else owned this land. What does that actually mean, right? Because the land pre-existed any individual human being. How can then we say we own it? The natives who used to live in this area apparently didn't have a concept of owning the land. They thought they were kind of part of it. But there's something to be said for ownership, I think, and it is an important concept of what we would term freedom, property rights, we might generally call them, although the concept of rights, I think, is somewhat dubious. Now, what I would say, what makes sense to me, is that the concept of ownership is sort of along the lines of the highest claim for, the highest recognized claim for. Because after all property is a competitive sort of gesture, isn't it? This is mine, therefore it's not yours, sort of thing, right? Is there value to this? I would say that there is, actually, because of the individual experience that we have in life. For example, you have the highest claim to your body, I would say, and you'd probably agree with me. In other words, this is probably the basis upon which rape is acknowledged as a heinous crime. I mean, nobody else can make the claim that they have a higher claim to your body than you do. It doesn't mean we can point to something that is really property ownership completely in itself, because we didn't create our bodies. Nevertheless, we have the use of our bodies, and each and every one of us has the highest version of that use, I would say. So, extend that out then to what we would call personal property or individual property. This truck, this pickup truck that I'm leaning against, most people recognize it as being my property or somebody's property. What does that mean? Well, I think if we go back to our bodies, right? Talked about yesterday in terms of the physical exercise and how the physical body is how it is that we are able to do anything in this world. We can have a ghost standing over there, but as far as we know, it might as well not be there because it doesn't have a body and we can't see it, and it can't pick up those twigs over there, at least not that we know of, not that I've ever seen. So the physical body, then, we could say that the extension of the physical body and what the body does becomes the claim for that. So if you or I were to build a birdhouse, then even though we didn't create the wood necessarily, we got it somehow. We bartered for it, we paid for it with equity that we had. We put it together. Now if somebody comes along and says, well, that's my birdhouse, they've got a stronger case to make than we do, because we know that we built that house, that birdhouse. Now for the pickup truck, I didn't build the pickup truck. However, it was purchased. There was a free market exchange between individuals for this pickup truck, And the value of consideration given for the pickup truck was what's known as money. And money is a representation of labor, in this case, labor of the body. So the money is an expression of the activity of the body. And if it's my expression of labor, then most people recognize that I have the highest claim to that, more than anybody else. Unless I've made an agreement to pay somebody off. Then when I'm working for them, my labor is their claim, if that makes any sense. So it's not as cut and dry, I don't think, but it is an important concept to come back to. I think that ownership of anything all stems from the concept of individuality and separation, which is our experience. But it has its value in that we each and every one of us can say that we have the highest claim to our bodies. And therefore we have the highest claim to the fruits of our bodies, whether that is good or bad, constructive or destructive. So if we go out and we create a heinous crime, or we damage somebody, we also, in effect, own that as well. That becomes like our property. And therefore, we have to, rather, it's sort of like a negative property. It's like a debt that we have then, right? I mean, if we own a positive property, like a pickup truck or a house that we build, we can turn around and make an exchange for somebody else for something of their value, right? But if we've created a harm against somebody, then we have created like a debt, a negative property, a property that we have to then give into. And the same goes if we sign upon an agreement to take on a debt. Then that's an exchange. It's an exchange of somebody giving us something and us giving a promise to pay over a period of time. So it's whatever our bodies are doing, really, if we really think about it. That's either what our body is, or what our body is doing, or what our body has produced. Our part of it is really our property. Now, so that would sort of negate the concept of property being that which is stolen. Because if I go and steal something from somebody and I have in my possession, say it's a snowmobile, if I stole a snowmobile from somebody, well, I'm using that snowmobile, but I don't have a just claim to it. I don't have the highest claim to it. The guy who owns it finds out that I have stole it. He can come over and somehow make the case based on, his purchase receipts and what have you, that he has the highest claim to it. And therefore he gets to recover it. And not only that, rightly so, whatever damages that I incurred, those damages are my property. In other words, I own those damages. And it's therefore my responsibility to fix them, if that makes any sense. So property rights, they're important, yes. There's a lot talked about in terms of freedom, the old trio of freedom of life, liberty, and the protection of property. But really, if we could even melt it right down to life, because life, to truly live, means to have a liberty. Because if there's no liberty at all, there's death, in a way, in terms of our individuality. In terms of our individuality, if there's zero liberty, there is no life. And property is an extension. The concept of property is an extension of life. So we could just melt it right down to life. And we could melt ourselves right down to life in terms of concept. That's what we are, is life. And It's just a bit of a ramble. Want to share a few things, not once again to dispel any gospel truth here whatsoever, just sharing ideas on improving the quality of our life experience. The greater understanding we have for ourselves, of ourselves, the greater we can make our quality in life. And speaking of quality of life, once again, just wanted to share the natural wonder that I am seeing here and experiencing here. It's a beautiful day, close to 20 degrees, very little wind. The trees are just starting to get a little bit green, and so is the grass. Yeah, early May, 3rd of May here. And I have discovered, though, that the ticks are out. Speaking of life, the ticks. I went for a walk earlier and looked at some turkey vultures, and I found a tick on my shirt later, so I suspect that I'll have more ticks on my body somewhere. So those ticks may claim me as property right now, but I have the higher claim for this body, so I'll have to get rid of them somehow. Anyway, you can see the leaves coming out. It's absolutely beautiful. I wish you could enjoy this with me, but hopefully this film footage does some justice to it. Great chatting again. Steve here. I'll sign off for now. We'll talk again later. Bye-bye for now.